Well, welcome to Spiral Reincarnation, the Third Paradigm. This is the book that I've been working on for the last year, and I have to thank the group for being the original inspiration, because when I presented last year, on the personal side, I did a little bit of work on reincarnation and presented that, and that has evolved into an entire book. And unlike other books on reincarnation, this one is illustrated, and you'll see why as I go through. I have a lot to cover, and so stay with it. If it'll be a lot of material, but it's just an overview. There's quite a bit in the book that I just can't get to. It would be nice, but I think I'll give you something of an idea of what the book contains and some of the ideas. Where does the material come from? I did a lot of reading. I've read books, I've read internet sites, all sorts of things. I belong to a Facebook group on reincarnation, and I've read a lot of comments. I also feel that this is the time of more revelation coming in, and I think I'm part of it. I'm not special. Everyone, I think, is part of this. And so I've been getting material through my spirit guides, through what I call spirit committees, which are committees on the other side that specialize in various areas. And so putting that all together, I've come up with a book. Also, my background helped, because I do have a degree in architecture, which gives me a visual side, which helped with the certainly with the illustrations. I also have a degree in theology, which helps to approach it from a broader standpoint. So anyway, this is what I've gotten so far. Reincarnation as a subject is exceedingly complex. In fact, on this mediums report that spirits such as Imperator say that the understanding of reincarnation goes beyond us, and I have to agree. The way that we have to approach reincarnation is more simplistic because of the way the way our minds are built, and the fact that we're dealing with what we call the veils. We can only seem to understand so much spiritually, and reincarnation is a subject that is complex. So the other thing is that the information is what I have gotten. Take it with a grain of salt, because as I like to say, don't hold me to anything. It might change in the next minute. It's the way that it's been. Anyone on the spiritual path, I think, finds that that's the case. If you've started out on the spiritual path and nothing has changed for you, then, well, you have to do a little bit more reading and research, because it does change. I've been at this for 40 years, and I can't tell you how many times I've changed views on things with new information coming in, and that's just the way it is. Now, spiral reincarnation, the third paradigm. Why is it the third paradigm? Because there are two other models. One of them is I call it linear reincarnation, and the reason I call it linear reincarnation is because we have the timeline, which you're familiar with, the sequential timeline. And here's some lives that I made up and gave them dates, and CE is, of course, Common Era. We used to call that AD. And linear reincarnation is the orthodox view. It's the view that most people take. It's a model where the timeline is sequential. One life follows another. You have soul evolution. You start as a primitive soul, and you work your way up through soul growth. You're in the earth school, where you're learning lessons and trying to get it right, which is a big part of the linear model. And of course, you have karma, which deals with how you've behaved, what you've thought, what you've done in other lives, and how you're trying to rectify that. In the book, I talk about how this system is influenced by culture. Certainly, soul evolution came about at the time that Darwinian evolution came about. The Earth School idea seems to have come along with the development of public schools. And the other thing about that I found with linear reincarnation or the Orthodox model is it's quite anthropocentric. In other words, the way we see things, we view as the way it is. And we're going to find with the next model I talked about briefly, plus spiral reincarnation, that, for instance, time is not sequential. That is only our perception. Time is actually simultaneous, all happens in the now. And so we have that factor with the Orthodox or the linear reincarnation model. The book covers its shortcomings. It talks about the problems with soul evolution, with the Earth School, with the lessons, and especially the idea of karma and how the system of karma is, when you really analyze it, is just unworkable. And but you have to read the book because I could talk about karma for the next 45 minutes, but I just want to give an overview of the book. Go on to this next model. This is the more recent model that's come on the scene. Linear reincarnation has been around for quite some time. This one I call circular reincarnation because of this wheel. And if you think of the center of the wheel as your higher self, and sending out these spokes that you see here, these are what this system calls soul fragments. And it comes onto this line here of the circle. And if you can ascribe dates to these, say 1500, 1600, 1700, 1800, these could be different times, 1400, 1300. And to us, it looks sequential, one after another, one, say, 1500, 1600, 1700. But to the spirit world, all of this happens at the same time. All the lives are simultaneous. And this is where one of the places where reincarnation gets to be difficult in terms of understanding it, because we are so tied to the sequential timeline. We think in terms of minutes and hours and days and weeks. And it's more difficult for us to grasp the simultaneous. But according to this model, which I call circular reincarnation, based on this wheel, all the lives happen at once. Now, this is the model that Seth talked about. This is the model that Neil Donald Walsh talks about. And so it's a newer model. It came around, really started with the Seth material and then developed more in the 1990s. And the big feature of this one, as opposed to linear reincarnation, is that circular reincarnation focuses on the higher self. In the linear reincarnation model, the higher self is simply a being that is the compilation of your past lives and is a wise being, and you can talk to it. But linear reincarnation is very individualistic. The focus is on you. How are you doing in this life? And how you're doing in this life tells you where you are in your soul growth. Whereas in the circular reincarnation model, the higher self sends out soul fragments, and you're one of those fragments. And as your higher self, you're having all these experiences all at the same time. And the idea is not soul growth or so much learning lessons, but the expansion of who you really are. There's really no earth school that you're going through. There's no karma. Karma is very difficult to conceive of when you don't have sequential lives, because how can you have karma if all the lives are happening at the same time? This is one of the difficulties with the orthodox model, linear reincarnation, whereas it's not a problem for circular reincarnation. Now, circular reincarnation also has its shortcomings, which the book goes into. And a big reason why I came up with this other model, spiral reincarnation. And spiral reincarnation is very similar to circular reincarnation. There's emphasis on the higher self as as sending out soul portions into these different lives, and time is simultaneous. However, there is a big difference. Now, here's the spiral model. It's sort of similar to the wheel, except here's the higher self sending out its soul fragments into different points in the timeline, but the timeline is a spiral. And I'm going to go into why the spiral makes much more sense than the circle as we go through. Now, leaving behind those two other models, I want to talk about exactly what spiral reincarnation is about. Spiral reincarnation focuses on who you really are. And who you really are is an eternal, perfect, and limitless higher self. Now, I'm going to change the term because in the book, I don't call the higher self the higher self. The higher self is a hierarchical term. If you have a higher self, somebody's lower, and it's you. And there is no higher and lower in the spirit world, really. We're all one. We're all cherished. And so I've left behind that term, and I've replaced it with expanding self, because the point of your incarnations is to expand more of who you really are. So instead of a higher self, an expanding self. And as an expanding self, eternal, perfect, limitless, you have always been, you will always will be. You did not begin as a primitive soul. You've always existed. And in the big difference between my model and the other two, we have the expanding self as a member of a soul group. Now, this is a model where you see all these little flowers and they're all interconnected. And this is a model that I've used for I call it the expanding self soul group. So this is a soul group made up of expanding cells. The number can be hundreds, thousands, I don't know. But the thing about it is, this is what you are part of. You are not alone. In the other two systems, it's you and the higher self, and that's it. In this model, you are part of a soul group. And the thing about this soul group, which is very important, is we are so interlinked as a soul group that what one member thinks, feels, or experiences is thought, felt, and experienced by all the others. We are closer than close. We are one, but we are individuals. And one of the inspirations for this is that in the mediumistic literature, there are soul groups, and we even know the names of some of them. Silver Birch is one, Imperator is another. Seth of the Jane Roberts material is a soul group. Michael of the Michael teachings is a soul group. And it seems soul groups are where the really good teachings come from, the better revelations come from, as far as I can see. And all of us, everyone here, everyone on the earth, is part of a soul group. Now, we get into, with this soul group idea, we get into some other concepts. One of them is that you're part of one soul group. This is one of them. There are innumerable soul groups, thousands upon thousands of them. And they all have within them individual entities, expanding selves that that work together in such a way that what one thinks and feels and experiences, they all feel. And so there are thousands upon thousands of these. And they're all eternal. They've always been. They always will be. And in the book, I talk about them as the mind of Source. That Source we think of as the creator, but Source has a mind, and these expanding self soul groups are the mind of Source. They act like neurons in the brain. And whatever Source is about, whether Source is eternal or creator or perfect, all the expanding self soul groups are the same. And we, as a result, as the neurons of the mind of Source, we are the creators. In fact, you and me, all of us here, every person you see on earth is a creator. Now, we think of it in terms of creation, and you manifest, and you make, you get a parking space maybe, or you manifest, money coming in, something like that. Spiral reincarnation goes far, far, far beyond that. We are the creators of the universe. We are the creators of all the parallel dimensions. Everything you see here, every animal, every plant, every mountain, we did it. We like to think of, we're, lowly beings, primitive souls, and Source created all this. Nope. In spiral reincarnation, we are the creators. We even created what I call the construct in the book, which is the duality, the vibration of the earth density, the veils, the forgetfulness. We created all of that. We even created the system of reincarnation. What I like to think is that if you have complaints about the system of reincarnation, look in the mirror. You're the one that put it together along with all of us. Uncountable numbers of us put this together. Now, why did we create the universe, the parallel dimensions? We did it in order that we could have experiences in reincarnation to expand more of who we are. And one of the big differences in my system of spiral reincarnation that differs greatly from the other two is the following. We, you and me, incarnate on the earth only once. Now, who are all these other incarnations that you're viewing in your past life regressions? Well, there are two sources for them. One of them is your expanding self soul group. Each of these members are also, not all of them, it's all by choice, are also incarnating on the earth in what we see as different time periods. And so if you do a past life regression, let's say you go back to 100 years and you're some sort of farmer, you think that's you, but it's not you. In the spiral reincarnation model, that's a member of your soul group. And because everything you think and feel and experience is just like any of the members of your group, you think you're the one that had that life, but it's actually a member of your soul group that has. Now, also in the spiral reincarnation model, there is the opportunity for you to have many different lives as a soul portion. I don't use the term soul fragment, but soul portion. And these are through parallel dimensions. And parallel dimensions have only recently come into the discussion in terms, more recently, in terms of the discussion of and in spiral reincarnation, because on the earth plane, you incarnate once. Your other incarnations seemingly it seem to be you are actually members of your expanding self soul group, but you have many, many incarnations in parallel dimensions. And parallel dimensions actually helps to explain anomalies in the other models that you just run into problems like soul families, parallel dimensions, and the expanding self soul group explains that very well. The linear reincarnation model and the circular reincarnation model have a lot of problems with those. Of course, in the spiral reincarnation model, it's about expansion of self. So there's no earth school, no karma, all is choice. Okay, so that's sort of the overview. Now I want to talk about why the spiral. As I said, we created everything. We created the earth, we created all the plant forms, the animal forms, we created the system of reincarnation. And in design, the design of it all, we use a multi-conceptual approach. So here's an aloe plant. You think, well, that's just a nice aloe plant. But in the multi-conceptual approach, this is actually a symbol for reincarnation. If you imagine an expanding self here at the middle and sending out different lives into parallel dimensions, and there they are, one lifetime after another, and just many parallel dimensions. Here is a message for us in the aloe plant about reincarnation. I don't think that this is accidental. I think that we actually designed it this way. And why did we design it this way? So that we could see in nature what we are here for and what life is really about, which is incarnation and the expansion of who we really are. And in nature, we have spirals everywhere. This is a Romanesco cauliflower, which is the same sort of idea. There's your expanding self in the middle, sending out seemingly sequential lives, which I'll talk about why they seem sequential, but they're not, into different parallel dimensions. Here's an ammonite with a spiral. You can imagine this is just one life, one dimension with life after life after life after life after life. And it's the same with the millipede. We see the same thing. And these are, I think, were designed not only as, life forms, plant life forms, animal life forms, and insect life forms, but also as messages to us. Now, you wonder, what about the human being? What is the message for us? And here it is. We have the spiral within our own bodies. In fact, we have them on our fingerprints are spirals, our inner ears have a spiral, and here DNA, which is the basis of the human life, is, what do you know, a spiral. And one day we were going to discover this, and the message is that spiral is the geometry that underlies reincarnation, and here it is in our very DNA. And if we go out into the universe, we also find the spiral there. As I said, they're everywhere. And it's a geometric, sacred geometry that just underlies so much of nature, and it underlies who we are as human beings. And you could even see in this galaxy, for instance, there's your expanding self, and there you're different, these stars could be like your different lives. So all sorts of messages. Okay. So also the spiral as a symbol of the cycle of life, and just to show that the spiral is really the geometry that underlies the incarnational cycle, and even the what we call the cycle of life. You know, we have birth, life and death. We have the seasons, summer, fall, winter, spring. We have even a day, day to night, and the day again. And we many times think of those as circular. You know, we come full circle, and you know, you get up in the morning, you go through your day, and you go to bed, and you actually have come spiral. So imagine, here's the morning over here. This morning, as you got up, and you go through your day, and you go to bed at night, and you get up the next morning, but here you are farther up the spiral. In other words, there's been a change in time, and this is true for the phases of the moon. It's true for birth, life, death, and then rebirth. And you're not being born as the same person. You're incarnating as another person, and up you go in the spiral. So the spiral is a much better illustration of the cycle of life. And a little bit more about the spiral. The spiral has with six, with a conception of with beauty. Here we have the famous Fibonacci series 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, which creates a spiral. And this spiral helps to underlie different forms. For instance, here we see the Fibonacci series, that sequential number can be found in the sunflower, which again looks just like an expanding self in the middle with lots of lives surrounding it. We find this form used in architecture, in painting, aesthetics, its underlying beauty. We also find it in the human body. We find it in life forms. These ancient symbols actually talk about reincarnation, and they are the forms, messages for us. Okay. Final part of the presentation. This is the Orphic egg. It's an ancient symbol, and I've used it to help explain how we can view lives as both simultaneous and as sequential. Now imagine here you are as an expanding self soul group in the middle of that egg, and what you're looking at is time. Time not as linear, but as field. And all the events are happening at once. Everything, every time period, what we call time periods, past, present, future, all happen at once. And in the middle of this egg, you send out your soul portion, emanations, to various points on the time field. And where do they go? They go along the body of this serpent. And this looks like a sequential time where we have, you know, let's say the Roman period, and then you have the Middle Ages, and then you have the Romantic period, etc. So from the vantage point of you as a spiritual being, you see everything at once. From our vantage point, we see everything as sequential. And so this is how the spiral reincarnation model deals with the sequential and the simultaneous. Okay, I wish we had more time, but I do have an endorsement. And Karen, I hope you don't mind, but Karen wrote this for me. And so, and I thank you very much for this, Karen. I think that it says a lot. I value your opinion, and I was really heartened to read this. And finally, spiral reincarnation offers you a grand vision of your design of this. Remember, you're the creator, design of the system of reincarnation, which holistically encompasses sacred geometry, the spiral, sacred symbolism, nature, and myth. I showed you a little bit of myth with the Orphic egg, and as part of the earth plane vibration and experience that you as your eternal, limitless, expanding self created, bringing about fabulous opportunities to become more of yourself. You are not a victim of, as I read so many times in the Facebook site that I'm a member of, you're not a victim of reincarnation. You are actually the creator of it, and it's there for you to experience all these fabulous dualities that we have on the planet. Imagine it. One of them is, for instance, we're all one, aren't we? But at the same time, you feel so separate, and the only way we can do that is with this type of creation we made, this construct. So, anyway, that is, in short, the vision of spiral reincarnation, and I wish I could go on for hours and hours and hours. That was very quick, just an overview. But if you have questions, go ahead.